Blog Talk Radio.
This program is brought to you by Star to Star Communications. Business owners, how would you like to cut your phone bill by up to 50%? Star to Star can save your business a substantial amount of money on your monthly phone bill. And if your business has multiple locations, Star to Star can save you even more money using its line pooling feature. Most customers see a positive cash flow the very first month they switch to Star to Star. For details on saving big money on your business phone bill every month, call Star to Star at 941-234-0001. That's 941-234-0001. Or visit startostar.com.
And hi again, everybody. Welcome back to Sports Talk. Doug Miles, Don Henderson with you on another Monday night, great weekend of sports. Lots to talk about tonight. I'm here in Sarasota. Don back here as well after spending a couple of weeks up in chilly New Jersey. So you're happy to be back down here, Don. I know we had a little breakfast over the weekend, a little warmer down here than where you were.
No question about that. And what they call a cool front down here is going to come in sometime tomorrow. And then it's going to go right back up to 80, 82. So I think it's much better to be settled right here.
And just want to mention briefly a sad situation over in the Philippines. I've never heard a storm that powerful anywhere, but they got hit pretty hard over the weekend. So we wish all the people there that I know there's devastation there with that typhoon. Same thing as a hurricane. They just call them typhoons over there.
Well, the big part about it was, as you said, it was the size of it and the speed. I mean, they're talking about 185, 190 mile an hour winds. And let's face it, in the Philippines, structures for the most part are built to last this kind of storm. So devastation, and the latest numbers I heard were, a little over 10,000 people had been killed. And you're right, we all certainly send out concern with what happened there.
I know my father, and kind of tying in with today being Veterans Day, again, we want to thank all the veterans out there who might be listening, for their service. My dad, when he was in the Army, he was stationed there, and he told some stories, even back then, how primitive it was as far as any kind of facility. I was in the 40s, but still, and the weather was horrible. The rainy season was literally raining, every day for about 3 months. So, it's a tough place to live.
No question about that. You're exactly right. And as you said, Veterans Day, and I really thought between yesterday's Herald, give a few compliments to the local newspaper. I thought yesterday's Herald and today's Herald, looking at some of the things that have happened since 1928 till today, the structures that were built, the reverence for Veterans Day, I thought they really did an excellent job of covering what's happened in Sarasota from 1928 until 2013.
Yeah, great remembrances. So a little bit of that on television today, and a lot of the shows doing, putting up pictures, a lot of websites, people putting up pictures of, their dad or uncle who may have served in the military. Good day to remember that. Unfortunately, it's not quite as big a holiday as it used to be. Everybody used to have off on Veterans Day. Now it's just basically a federal holiday or a bank holiday, and maybe some of the schools might have off, but no longer the complete holiday that it used to be, which is kind of a shame.
Yeah, it is a little bit, and the fact that they showed, with 5 points, what transpired in 1928, and you look at the structure that they had there at that time in the monument. It's you look at it today. I'm a newcomer to the area the last 8 or 10 years. You're much older than I am in terms of having been, in Sarasota. But from the picture that was in the paper today and the monument that they refer to, you wouldn't recognize that today.
No, it used to be. They had a nice parade downtown today. I understand they do that in Sarasota and up in New York. I know they used to do that. We used to do more of a Memorial Day as well. As a kid in the school, you used to get to march in that, whether you're in the band or not. But
originally it was Armistice Day, right? Wasn't it Armistice? Originally they changed it. Right after after World War I, what was supposed to have been the last war of all time. it was Armistice Day and held in much more reverence. Unfortunately, we're in a time period in this country where people don't recognize a lot of things that should be recognized, and that's one of them.
Yeah. Well, we want to bring on our first guest tonight. We haven't talked to him in a while because he's been doing a show opposite ours the last few months because he does a lot of football broadcasts down in this area, Sarasota, Venice, Englewood area. And it's always good to welcome him on. He also does an NFL show with our other friend, Sal Capaccio, the coach who used to live down here, now up in Buffalo, great radio personality up there. We're joined by Rich Spitolari. You talk a little football tonight or whatever is on his mind. And, Rich, it's been a long time since we had you on this program. How you been?
Not too bad. Yeah, it's been since like July or August. Finally got done with all the coaches shows. The regular season is over in high school football. It's hard to believe that we're already in the playoffs, and the NFL season is steaming rolling towards the second half of the year, and the college football season is coming down the stretch.
Well, before we go too far, chat a little bit, give us an update on what's happening to our man in Buffalo, because we did a number of shows with him, especially when Donnie G had the show on Comcast, and he had tried many times to relocate, get a full-time job there, and it finally came about. What can you tell us? How's he doing?
Sal is doing very well. He works for WGR 550 AM in Buffalo. That's the main sports talk station there. That's an Entercom station there. Also the radio home of the Buffalo Bills and Buffalo Sabres, the two pro teams in town. And Sal is actually part of the Buffalo Bills broadcast. He takes care of the halftime show and also does the post-game show. He has a show on Saturdays from 11 a.m. to usually right around 2 p.m., depending on programming that he does every Saturday, and he fills in for just about anybody that goes out on vacation. He was out on a couple of days last week from 6 to 10 in the morning. He's doing very well. He's doing some TV work as well. I believe, as a matter of fact, as we record this now, he's recording a TV show for Time Warner. I believe he does it with Arthur Moats, a linebacker for the Bills. That's a weekly show, and he's done some play-by-play as well. They're, you think we've gone very far. The high school playoffs in New York have reached the championship stages already, so he's doing some TV work for Time Warner up there. So he's got his hands full all over the place, plus his wife is due around Thanksgiving with their first child.
Oh,
really?
That's
I didn't know that. That's great.
That's terrific. Well, when you talk to him, give him my best, and hopefully we'll get a chance to see him. Maybe he'll be down for Thanksgiving over the holidays or maybe later on in the year, but certainly tell him we said hello and congratulate him, wish him the best of luck.
I definitely will. As a matter of fact, I'll be co-hosting the NFL Now show that we do on the Internet that you can see at salsports.com. I'll be co-hosting that again tomorrow night with him, so you'll be able to see that in the iTunes store later this week.
Yeah, you're on with that. You're also on with him on WGR as well. You do kind of the Bucks report with him. So you're on up in New York too, there, Rich. Your home state.
Yeah,
sort of.
Yeah, that's where I'm a downstater though. That's way upstate over there. That's
like me.
500 miles from the city. Yeah, exactly.
Well, the other story we talked about, obviously, what happened with Independence Day, Armistice Day, or whatever you like to call it. But the Herald had another major story today. I don't know if you had a chance to see it or look at it, about the possibility of a stadium with a new mayor coming in. He said there are a couple of major events that he is very concerned with getting started, and or picking up where it left off with Mayor Foster before he was voted out of office, and that obviously is a stadium, and working with Tampa and somehow getting this thing settled within the next 3 or 4 years. And I know you probably looked at the article too. What are your thoughts about the Trop and what can happen up there?
Well, selfishly, I like the Trop in the sense that it's an hour from my front door here in Venice. It's the closest venue up in Tampa. But realistically, they do need to get a more modern stadium, probably in a greater population area, while us folks down south do, take the trek up to the Trop a lot. They really need to tap into the markets north of Tampa, Pasco County, where some of the money is there. Also, Lakeland and even Orlando. There's a huge fan base in Orlando, and I think if they, put the stadium either in the channel side area or, my opinion, the best place to put it is out by where 75 and 4 meet, not too far from a certain Indian casino. I think that would probably be a great place because it would be accessible from just about anywhere, and it would be, I think, ideal for people coming from the north, coming from the east. People from Tampa won't complain about having to go over the bridge, and us folks from the south would still only be about an hour and 10 or an hour and 15 minutes away, depending on where they put it. So I think that, to me, seems like the most realistic place. But if the mayor of Tampa is talking, he's probably talking something more within his city limits, which would be the channel side area, which the Tampa Bay Lightning have done a nice job in building up.
Doug?
Well, the Rays need to get with the folks up in Atlanta. They seem to have shoved that stadium issue through pretty quick. Braves moving out of where they are now to a new one in Cobb County. So they got that done pretty easily.
Well, that's kind of surprising to me, and I got to talk to my good buddy Grant McCauley, who actually works in Atlanta Sports Talk Radio now, and get the scoop on what's going on. That kind of came out of left field in the last couple of days, guys. Turner Field, which of course was originally Olympic Stadium, was only built in like the mid '90s for the Olympics of 1996. Yeah. So we're not talking about an ancient stadium, but it is not a quote unquote baseball stadium, and that's apparently what the Braves want. And they feel they could draw more. And again, Cobb County is more centrally located for them and their fan bases. And I saw some maps today, and that's kind of like the maps that people from Tampa need to do. You need to locate the place that'll get, be basically 45 minutes for everybody. Put the stadium there, and I think that makes everybody happy. It's interesting that Atlanta's going to do it apparently in the next, 3 or 4 years. And
3 years.
Like
they're going to do it 3 years because the bonding issue is finished. It was a 20-year deal. So in 15 it will be, actually 16. It'll be 20 years old, and therefore their lease was for 20 years, and they'll be able to move out without any penalty. And the other thing is that they wanted to get out into an area. I talked to my friend Roger Hendler, who lives up there, does a lot of talk shows and radio work there. $850,000 or $1 million they've already set aside to begin to build the stadium, and it'll take them 2.5 to 3 years to get it built. So they should be in by 16.
Well, I mean, it sounds like they've got the plan, they've got the money, and I think that's the big thing, the big difference between us here and there. They apparently have the money, whereas here it still has to be to determine who is going to pay for it. And the community up there and I lived up there when this happened, after what happened with Raymond James Stadium, there's still a bad taste in the mouth of many people in the Tampa Bay area, and particularly in Tampa. They felt that they got kind of hosed on that deal, and I'm not so sure if it gets, a public vote, despite all the Rays fans around. I would not be surprised if that didn't pass first time around, or maybe even second time around, and then it's basically got to come down to Stu getting with Major League Baseball. Major League Baseball, I think, is going to have to foot some of the bill here, because they're the ones that are pretty much at this point saying, look, they got to get out of St. Petersburg or they're going to be out of Florida altogether. So, if MLB wants that, then MLB might have to foot some of the bill.
Yeah, lease goes for, another 7, 8, 12 years, right? Isn't that what the lease has remaining on it?
No, actually,
so that's
27. I believe it's 27. Yeah.
Correct.
Correct.
2020.
So,
yeah. So you're looking at another
somebody's
13
got to pay
years.
pay that off. Yeah.
Well, from all accounts, the deal that they had tried to put together or are trying to put together, would be a buyout situation, where they'd obviously have to take care of St. Petersburg. They say that the sales tax part of it, that division of the payout, would not be that high, but the buyout could be significant. And if they decide to leave before, they're really liable for a tremendous suit. So they're really between a rock and a hard place, to say the least.
Yeah, and Stu Sternberg's not going to put that money up out of his own pocket, so somebody's going to have to put that money up. And I have a funny feeling that that's going to have to be something that's negotiated. And again, I think MLB is going to have to get involved because, there's a lot of talk about the Rays moving this place and that place, but quite honestly, with the media market that we are in, which is a top 20 market, and the kind of ratings that the Rays pull in, their next TV contract should be very juicy. I don't think Major League Baseball wants to lose this size of market because wherever they would go, the market size would drop significantly. I think the closest you could possibly get would be somewhere around 50 if it was the Charlotte area.
I don't think there's really an area that they can go, to be honest with you. I think baseball has expanded and moved and transposed about as much as it can. I think they're used up. Charlotte would probably not be a bad market for a period of time, but, it'd be like Milwaukee was when they first started. And now, if you have a winning team, and that's the surprising thing about Tampa, they've had now 5 consecutive years where they've really been, right there to the World Series. And if you can't draw, the lowest drawing team in baseball, and if you can't draw when you have a team that's competing for an American League championship, a playoff championship, a World Series, how in the heck are you ever going to compete? How about when the team goes south a little bit like the Bucks are right now?
Yeah, that's a very good point, Don. And we've seen it. The Buccaneers have not drawn really significantly since the mid-2000s, like 05, 06, 07, once it was found out that long waiting list was nothing more than a fraud. We go to the games all the time, and I'm telling you, most of the time it's a half full, at most 2/3 full stadium, even if they announce it's a sellout or even 85%. Right. It's nowhere near that. And quite frankly, the NFL's starting to get a little tired of that too. They've talked a lot about Jacksonville maybe moving. Well, Jacksonville's actually drawing the last couple of years. At least their tickets are being sold, whereas ours, right after the Josh Freeman thing, it was kind of ironic, guys, that they announced that all the games were going to be on TV, that they had reached their 85% threshold for every single game, which I thought was kind of a little bit of a concession for actually what was going on. But it'll be interesting to see what happens going forward with that. And again, if somebody, and this craziness that they're talking about with London, which I think is just absolutely ridiculous, but if there was a team to move, I'm fearful that the Buccaneers might be at or near the top of the list because, quite frankly, they're not drawn.
Time with Rich Spitaleri. You can follow him at spitsonsports.com. Covers all the major sports down here in Sarasota and Venice, Englewood area, WENG Radio, and his own podcast as well. And Rich, as we do the show on a Monday live, but of course, Bucks hosting the Monday night game tonight. But the bigger story is all the stuff leading into it with the Dolphins. Probably one of the few Monday night games where people may just watch to just for the curious situation with what happened in the locker room. Neither of those players are even going to be there.
Yeah, it's like an ambulance chasing story, and the Bucks were the ones making all the news the first half of the season with what was going on with Josh Freeman and the Mercer situation, which still is not totally resolved out at One Buck Place, and the fact that now as many as 5 or 6 people have been infected with that, and if anybody knows anybody that has had to deal with that, that is no joke. That is a serious situation, and then to top it all off, as we record this show, the Bucks are still the last winless team in the National Football League, and yet they're being totally overshadowed by what's going on down in Miami. Stephen Ross had a press conference on Monday evening, and just about 2-3 hours before the game, talking about the fact that he wants to get all the facts, that he's going to talk to Jonathan Martin later this week on Wednesday at an undisclosed location. There's an independent committee that's been put together by Roger Goodell, an independent investigator, to try to figure out and get to the bottom of what's going on. But it's a complete mess down there. And the thing that gets lost in all this, guys, Martin and Incognito represent 2/5 of the Dolphins' offensive line, which is gone. And they haven't been very good to begin with. Going into Monday night's game, Ryan Tannehill had been sacked 35 times in 8 games, which was all he was sacked in a complete season last year. I mean, he's on pace to get sacked 70 times, and now they're going to be putting even less experienced offensive linemen in. So the Dolphins could be headed down the same spiral that the Buccaneers and Jaguars have been going down all season long. Although let's give a salute to the Jaguars. They were able to nut it up and get a win in Tennessee on Sunday.
Break them up.
Yeah. Well, two interesting points you guys would comment. Doug, both of you would comment. And one is I agree. I think tonight's a big night. I'm very interested to tune in tonight and see what the crowd is, whether or not they get everybody off the street and put them in the seats, or whether they show a stadium that's half empty. I don't think they want to do that on Monday Night Football. And the other thing is, if there was a fraud, you talked about fraud. The fraud was that interview that they did over the weekend to tell us all the inside information on what happened with the Miami Dolphins. I mean, what kind of an interview is that?
Yeah, Fox really built that thing up, and quite frankly,
terrible.
we have more questions than answers after that interview. The one thing I do see, Don, tonight, I think the house will be pretty much packed, at least for the first half, because a lot of people bought their tickets, and this is actually a 100% sellout, not even the 85. They announced 2 weeks ago that this game sold out completely, and that's because they're going to put number 99 in the Ring of Honor, Warren Sapp.
That's true, yeah.
The question is, in the second half, especially if it's a non-competitive game, what's left? It's be like a preseason game, 20,000 maybe. That's the big key. After everybody sees Warren get into the Ring of Honor about 10:15, 10:30, a lot of people have to go to work the next day, and if the Bucs are already down in the second half, considering their track record, they only have 2 second-half touchdowns all season and have been grossly outplayed in the second half, including last week when they had a 21-0 first-half lead in Seattle. I could see the fans scurrying for the exits in a big hurry, and you will see a crowd similar to a preseason game in the second half.
Doug?
Yeah, just getting back to that interview, I think Jay Glazer did 45 minutes. They only showed maybe 5 or 6 minutes of it, and a lot of the stuff people want to know about, they even show on that interview. So, I didn't get to see all of it. I saw some clips today, but bad job again. But, typical, over-promote it and then under-deliver.
Well, the thing is, if you're going to promo this is the inside story. This is it. All day Friday into Saturday into Sunday, we can't release anything. This is a inside information interview, and then you come out with that, and the guy, all he does is talk about a letter he got and the locker room conversation. I mean, you don't need any inside interview to hear that.
Yeah, that's nothing. There was literally no news out of that.
Nothing.
Other than Incognito pretty much saying that, Martin spoke to him similarly, which doesn't surprise me, but I want to hear what Jonathan Martin has to say. I think a lot of people do, because this thing has hit the mainstream media, and they continue to pound on it. I watched a couple of the morning shows this morning, and they were still all over it. Even after the interview, I think at this point, Jonathan Martin's going to have to speak pretty soon so that the story gets out there completely, because that's the big missing piece to this whole thing. And I think Stephen Ross, in going to see him on Wednesday, I think is going to tell him, son, he'll listen to him, and then he'll probably say, well, you need to go public with this so this story can go away so we can continue to be the Miami Dolphins and have a chance to to finish up our season strong, because quite frankly, it's a circus. All 3 teams in Florida, all 3 pro teams in Florida, it's an absolute circus all season long.
I've never seen a football season have more off-the-field stories going back to the last off-season, with the concussions and, where you can hit a quarterback, and then the Mercer situation with the Bucs, and now this story, and all the outside things. I've never seen an NFL season have this to deal with. Now, obviously, you almost can't kill it because people still watch it, people still come to their games, but you got to think future generations of fans, are it's going to hurt them. I think the current fans are not going to drive them away, but these kind of stories aren't helping.
No, they're not, but I think the NFL is a victim of their own product. They've become so big that every little thing that happens gets magnified 100 times. I mean, Doug, you know
Right.
it. You guys both know it. Doing a talk show, in the off season, there's always a story that comes out at least once a week that somehow grabs the headlines in the NFL. I desperately, when I do my shows, try to keep away from the NFL as best I can, but that's what the fans want right now. So they want every little thing to come out, and of course every little thing then becomes every big thing because you got so many organizations trying to report on it, and they want to be first, and they want to have it, so they might even stretch the truth a little bit. And unfortunately, it's turned our profession into something that, quite frankly, I'm not very proud to be a part of at times.
The tweeters, all the tweeters have it all. But the one thing that surprised me yesterday, going around the dial, I talked to Doug about this earlier today. Did you see how many empty seats there were in Pittsburgh yesterday? And, Pittsburgh was the heart and soul of the National Football League, and you had more empty seats there than you've seen in 15 or 20 years.
Well, they're 2-6. I mean, everybody. If it stinks, they're not going to come, especially as the weather starts to turn. Everybody gets on, like Buffalo and some of these other Cleveland and some of these other cities where they don't win. Well, you're seeing the product of not winning, even in a great city like Pittsburgh, where allegedly, all the games are sold out. You're seeing it all around the National Football League. You're seeing attendance go down, and I don't care what the numbers say. I want to hear the numbers that are actually in the parks. I watched some of the Jacksonville game in Tennessee. That stadium was about half full, and allegedly it was sold out 100%. Guys, the 50, 65-inch, I've got my wife's boss has a 120-inch theater in his house. You can sit in your house and sit at the 50-yard line and have a front row seat at these games. Your kitchen's right here. You can make whatever you want for pennies on the dollar for what you'd spend at the ballpark. You don't have to deal with the fans, and the fans have gotten really bad at these games, especially the NFL. That's another major problem that Roger Goodell is going to have to address, is that fan behavior at these games is just it's just turned into something that obviously the league is not proud of. But it accounts only for about 1% of the entire revenue. So while we're all aghast and we all see the empty seats, they don't care. The seats are sold. It's on TV. That's the money driver right there, is the TV. They could be playing in front of nobody, and they really couldn't care because they're going to cash the check at the end of the day.
And you have a young kid, Rich. I mean, would you want to bring him to an NFL game? I wouldn't think so.
No,
yeah.
Absolutely not. When he gets interested in football, he's 4 years old, so soccer's his thing, like it is with every little kid, it seems like, for at least their formative years. But my wife took my daughter. I was working a preseason game. They're from New England, so a couple of years ago I got tickets when the Patriots came to town. And they, in the third quarter, left because of the people sitting around my daughter, who at the time was like 9 or 10, and just the vulgarity and everything that was going on. I mean, this is a wife and a girl, two girls, and nobody has any regards for anything. The F-bombs were flying, beers flying all over the place, fights are going on. Who wants to sit and spend, and I mean, paid regular season, it was $70 to sit upstairs for a preseason game. So who's going to want to spend that kind of money to take their family out, and the family's not even going to enjoy themselves?
Well, all you do is just look at TV and listen to the radio and look at pictures. And Cyrus is all over the place yesterday smoking dope. And what is she, 20 years old? I mean, this is the world we live in, boys. This is it. Not going to change.
Nope, not at all. Not at all. Let's talk about positive things. I know, Doug, you wanted to talk a little college football. I didn't know if you wanted to go there next or...
Yeah, sure. Before we do that, just briefly, let's mention, because you brought up to my attention, Rich, I didn't get to hear the story. Lightning fans talking about the Tampa Bay Sports. Tough blow for them today, playing an afternoon game. Stamkos, ugly injury.
Very ugly injury. It's a broken tibia, and he's going to be out indefinitely. And some people are already starting to speculate 3, 4, 5 months. I'd say just let him rehab it and get back. It was a nasty. They had an overhead shot of it, and his shin just bent back. It was a gnarly injury. Totally legitimate play. He was just going hard to the net, actually back checking. Okay, superstar back checking, and he ends up losing his entire season. It shows you the kind of player he's become, and unfortunately, that's going to be the end of the Lightning season. They're going to be done.
Yeah, just the reverse of what happened. Although the first 6 or 7 games last year they won, and then they went into a nosedive. This year they're at the top of the heap at the particular moment. Well, they've lost 4 games. I don't have the paper from me. I think they lost 4 games.
11-4, something like that.
Yeah, 11-4. I think they are. And to have something like this happen, and just the reverse, as far as the Lightning is concerned, their building has been a hallmark for the National Hockey League because they keep drawing almost capacity for every single game, and now they're in first place and had a lot of momentum going in Tampa, and now it's going to sort of put a real crimp in the style.
It really will, but if the fans will still show up. Jeffrey Vinnick does a tremendous job. I mean, if you go to the 3 sports teams venues here in Tampa, the Lightning, the Rays, and the Bucks. I mean, the Rays do a nice job. They've got a lot of in-house things going on between innings to try to keep fans interested. But again, it's at the Trop. The Buccaneers play in a stadium that's hosted Super Bowls, but it's outdoors in September and October, and at times can get miserable. And the Bucks don't do much in game. I mean, they really need to take a page out of the Rays and or the Lightning. But the Lightning, if you go to a Lightning game, it never stops. It never stops. Even during you don't even notice the 3 timeouts a period because they keep things going. They keep things fast. They have stuff going on the ice. The atmosphere. They just get it. They understand. I got to get this fan here. Okay, it's hockey. It's a northern sport. I got to get them in the building, and I got to make sure they want to come back the next time. And you do some exit polling yourself next time you go to a Lightning game and just take 10 random fans. Guarantee you 9 of them are coming back because they enjoyed the experience. It's a fast and physical game, but most of all, the Lightning get it. They understand how to treat the fans. It's a tremendous venue. Jeffrey Vinnick has put millions of dollars into a pretty new venue. That stadium wasn't that old, but he ripped all the seats out and put brand new seats in. He put this huge replay scoreboard in, which I guess if you want to get it's comparable to the Cowboys in the sense of how big it is compared to the arena. I mean,
yep.
They get it. They get it, and people completely understand in Tampa how to get the fans back.
Well, and also, how about the money he gives away at every game? I mean,
absolutely.
He's done everything humanly possible for, to ingratiate himself to the community. Now he's selling his big house up there in New England, Boston, and he's going to. By the way, he's going to live right here. He's going to live down in the Sarasota area here, which is obviously a great boost for us.
Absolutely, and he loves this area, and he's made no secret about it. And not only what he gives away at the games, but even before the games, what he's doing around Channel Side. He is part of that money that in the Channel Side area that is building that area up.
Hello. Rich Spitaleri joining us on the show. Rich, let's talk about college football. You follow that pretty closely. Looks like the top 1 and 2 are pretty well set, barring kind of any upsets. I guess Auburn is the biggest test for Alabama, right?
Well, Auburn and then possibly Missouri in the SEC championship game if the Tigers can run the table. They've got a couple of more tests. Florida State, to me, has this look about them this year. And I will temper this by saying I'm a Florida State fan, so I've tried to take myself kind of out of the situation and look as a non-fan. And I know sometimes it's hard to do, but the fact of the matter is Florida State, the thing that I think that separates them from the rest of the country, their defense is just unreal. They turn the ball over constantly. The other day I think Wake Forest had 6 interceptions and had 4 completions in the game. I mean, that's just unreal. And they're putting teams away early. They don't have the schedule that's left. I mean, they basically have a walkover. The Gators is going to be their biggest test, and then, of course, the ACC championship game, which might be Virginia Tech, who might pose a little bit of a problem if Florida State's got revenge on their side there, too. Yeah, these two teams have really separated themselves. The other two unbeatens that are highly ranked, Ohio State just doesn't play the schedule, and, quite frankly, I just don't think they're good enough. And Baylor showed me a lot against Oklahoma last Thursday night in that
sure
big Thursday night game. They showed me something defensively, too, which I really wanted to see, because the Big 12 usually is all about wide-open offenses and let's win 55-48. Well, they really shut down Oklahoma's offense. And I think if there was a team that ends up number 3, if they end up running the table, because they've got a couple of ranked teams they've still got to beat, I think if there's a team that really has a serious beef at the end of the season, I think it would be Baylor, but they're still so far behind Ohio State and Alabama that they're going to need one of them two to fall for them to even have a chance.
I sort of agree. I agree with you. I like Baylor down there. I think Baylor's got an extremely good team. And the other team I think that's right in the mix is going to be Stanford. So if any one of these teams, because as you said, when you talk about the Big Ten, the only game that Ohio State really has left is Michigan, and Michigan is, mediocre. I know it's a great rivalry and all the rest of it, but rivalries are great games if teams are competitive. If they're not competitive, the rivalries don't mean anything. So, they have to beat Michigan to go undefeated and then have 2 seasons of undefeated football. But I sort of like Baylor, and I definitely like Stanford. I think Stanford is a very, very solid team, and they got a loss, so they're not going to get in. But I think they got a great shot if something happens.
Yeah, they're the best one-loss team, Don. There's no question. The resume is by far the best. They did a blind resume thing. They've already beaten 4 top 20 teams.
That's right.
This year. And, you can't discount that. But the fact of the matter is that ugly loss at Utah, which still stands as Utah's only Pac-12 win, that thing just sticks out like a sore thumb. And unfortunately, they're going to need a lot of help. Ohio State, you mentioned Michigan. They're going to get maybe a one-loss Michigan State in the Big Ten championship game, but still I don't think that's going to be enough to propel them. They're going to need a loss by either Alabama and Florida State, and quite frankly, I think they're going to need a loss by Baylor too.
Yeah, there's been a great lobby in Columbus, down there. They went along sort of very quietly and not putting any pressure on the rating systems, but now, boy, they are really coming out. The alumni are really coming out. What do you mean, Ohio State? Well, how can you just say the Big Ten doesn't mean anything? You're talking about the ACC, which is a minor league. You're not talking about the Big Ten. You're not talking about the Pac-12. This, that. They're really putting the heat on now.
Guys, do you think Ohio State would get within 20 of Florida State right now? I mean, just the eye test, just watching both teams. As much as I like what Ohio State done and what Urban Meyer has done, and he probably would have, an advantage because he's played Florida State every year and quite frankly beat Florida State every year. But, is Braxton Miller that much better than Taj Boyd? They made Taj Boyd look silly in that game at Clemson. I don't think Ohio State would be within 20 points of Florida State if they played.
Well, I don't know the matchups. I'd have to get the, really look. It's not so much the teams. It's matching up. What do you have against what we have? And, who would have thought the other day the outcome would have been the way it was? I mean, holy smokes, you're talking about a game that you think was going to be very, very close with LSU, and all of a sudden Alabama just blows them away.
Yeah. The thing about Alabama that scares me is they let teams hang around sometimes. LSU, mid-third quarter, that game's 17-17. LSU,
they were behind 14-0 to Texas A&M.
Right, absolutely, and then they were able to score enough points to beat A&M and Johnny Football. They do what they have to do to win, and I think they will continue to do that. I think they'll beat Auburn. I mean, everybody's already starting to make a big thing out of this Iron Bowl, and if Auburn goes in with only one loss, it does make the game huge. But I think when the line comes out, Alabama will be at least a 2-touchdown favorite in the game because they're just, quite frankly, that much better a football team than Auburn is. And then the SEC championship game, I think Missouri would be an interesting game, but there's nobody there that I can look at and say, they've really got a shot to beat Alabama. I think Alabama's only way they get beat is if they beat themselves until they get to the championship game. And quite frankly, I would love to see Alabama going for a three-peat against this Florida State team, which seems to have enough horses to at least make it a game, unlike the last couple of years.
John, is your alma mater going to get Nick Saban?
Well, I don't think so. Texas, boy, oh boy, they had to go to overtime to win the first overtime game that they played under Mac Brown, and they're just not good enough defensively. I mean, it's amazing to me that with the ability to recruit that he has shown in North Carolina and for the last 17 years at Texas, that he can't get a better team. I mean, they just have not been cohesive the last few years, and this year is no better. Especially the games that they lost. You talk about, what happened to them early in the season. But the funny thing is, they're still in the race. I mean, that's the amazing part about it. They're 4-0, and their side of the division, so they're still in the race, but they're not that good. Believe me, they're not that good.
Well, Baylor's going to have to beat Texas, and that's
they will.
Little brother against big brother, and I got to give Mac Brown all the credit in the world. Everybody was, sending him out of town, and
right.
You're right, those two terrible losses before conference play started. But they've been a different team in conference, and of course that was highlighted by the drubbing they put on Oklahoma in the Red River rivalry. I wouldn't. That's going to be a dangerous game for Baylor. If they go in and think they're just going to roll over Texas, they got another thing coming because. That's one of those things.
I watched the game in its entirety against West Virginia. I don't know if you had a chance to see it or not.
I saw some of it. Yeah, the defense is not good. You're absolutely right.
To go into overtime against a West Virginia team, doesn't bode well for the rest of the season when you get the good teams. I mean, as you said, they've had some good, very good wins. They won 5 in a row now. They've had some very good wins. But, boy, West Virginia, I mean, they moved the ball up and down like there was nobody there.
Yeah, no question about it. I mean, you can't give up 40 points to a team like that. But each game is individual and unto itself.
Yep.
Baylor's going to have to go and beat Texas on the field. It's a great thing about that. Again, you're going to have a battle of hopefully Texas stays unbeaten in conference, and it's a battle of 2 unbeatens in the conference, and it'll at least give Baylor some more credibility if they were able to beat Texas.
I don't have the schedule in front of me. Do they play at Waco or do they play in Austin?
I don't have it in front of me either, but I will endeavor to get that here in the next few seconds. And,
I don't have the computer in front of me or the schedule. I got schedules all over the house, but I don't have one here. But
you don't memorize those, Don?
I should. You're right. And especially, listen, I've been a Waco, boy, that's no place to go. You don't want to put that on your top of your visiting list, I'll tell you that.
No, it's having lived in Texas, that's far east Texas, and it's not the best place in the world to go, but I believe that game is it's in Waco on Championship Saturday, as a matter of fact, December 7th, since the Big 12 does not have a championship game. That could be the de facto championship game if both teams go in undefeated.
Well, if they're playing in Waco, I give Mac less. If he wins that one, I'll give him all the credit in the world. But it seems like he's won one national championship. He's been in the hunt, but I'm not for firing anybody. Don't misunderstand me, because he's won a hell of a lot of games. But I don't think he's going to go to Waco and win. If whatever the point spread is, I'd go for Baylor.
All right. Fair enough.
Well, Rich, I know we kept you on longer than we said. Always great to talk football with you. And I know you're going to be doing a playoff game down up in Tampa, actually, next week on Friday night. High school football playoff game, Venice Indians and Armwood. So folks can check that out on WNG.com. You can listen to Rich on the NFL Today show on iTunes as well, and Spits on Sports. So all those places you can find it, right?
That's correct, and we will be on WNGRadio.com Friday night, Venice and Armwood. Quite frankly, this is a game where, the winner has a real shot to make a serious run in Class 6A.
Who do you like?
Yeah. Well, Armwood's undefeated, and they've only given up 49 points all year long. But if Venice can find a way to penetrate, their defense, their offense is nothing special, and Venice can put 50 or 60 on the board. This is about as big a toss-up as I've seen. The difference could be that Venice has can both run and throw the ball this year, and Armwood's going to have to play defense on both sides. I think Venice can win a close one. Venice has the last 3 years won in the first round on the road, so they're very used to doing this.
Great.
Yeah, Venice had a big win in Texas. Speaking of Texas, 6-7 weeks ago, kind of put them on the map a little bit. Then they lost a tough one at home to have to go on the road for the playoffs. But you and I had a chance to see them last year, and I'll be doing a game against their opponent last year, Rich, Pinellas Park, taking on Sarasota, getting a home playoff game. So some good football coming up down here in Florida.
Yeah, that game should last about an hour and 20 minutes because Pinellas Park is strictly wing T, and they will just run the football and run the football and run the football.
Yeah. Well, Rich, good to talk to you. Rich Spitaler's been our guest, and we'll do it again maybe after the first of the year, do like a mid-season hockey report and a little football playoff preview and whatever else is going on. But thanks for joining us tonight.
Sounds good, guys. Thanks for
thank you very much, and don't forget to say hello to our boy in Buffalo.
Definitely will. I'll tell him tomorrow night.
Rich Spitaleri joining us on the show and waiting patiently because I know he wants to talk about his Indianapolis Colts, how well they performed yesterday. He's a G-Man. G-Man, are you there?
Yeah. Good show, guys. The only thing I'm a little bit just concerned about is that you never mentioned Butler Bulldogs football team. But anyway.
How are they doing, by the way?
They do have a team, I think. I don't. No,
I was very interested in waiting for your input. Bob Costas, I thought, was going to do an editorial last night on the situation with the Dolphins, but he didn't do it. He didn't do it. I thought you'd be all ready to counteract that, but we can't do that tonight.
Since I don't watch NBC, I didn't know whether or not he gave a report or not. But I'm sure I would have heard about it, but I didn't. But anyway, actually, if you really want to talk about bullying, I think that we need to talk about. In fact, there's already complaints being filed against the St. Louis Rams for bullying the Colts around. So they could have made it a much closer game, and they didn't. So what's funny was the Sunday Sports came out in the headlines in my newspaper, and they were Colts trying to lean less on luck. Okay, so much for that article. And then what's even better is inside with Colts game day, and Angar grateful for his return to form, and I really loved the last comments when he was talking about a bunch of guys who are out there constantly coaching each other, and everybody just wants to win. And I don't know where they were Sunday, but they most certainly didn't show up. But anyway, so if anybody watched that game, that was a very lackluster. In fact, talk about incognito. The fans were taking their coat stuff off and pulling their collars up over there when they were leaving the game. Yeah.
Well, at least you have Johnson in first place.
Oh, well, yeah, that's sure.
Is that two in a row?
Johnson. No, he didn't win. But he was like whatever. I don't know. He was in the top 5, 3, 4, 5.
Five, yeah.
Actually, it was.
No, I think Bush won, didn't he?
Bush won, right? Johnson stayed in first place in the overall.
Yeah, Bush won the race, but Johnson's in first place by a
Kyle.
Was there two more races, G-Man, or one?
Kyle won the nationwide. Yeah, one more to go. That you're talking about Homestead, right. Florida, and barring a complete, his car won't start, no motor, what have you, Johnson will win the chase, and I think it's going to be a lackluster race, quite frankly. I'll be amazed if Kansas gets in there, or even Gordon. Most of them are too far back right now anyway. All Johnson really has to do is finish somewhere in the top 25. And, yeah, that's a nice track out there. 300 in Phoenix, 312 laps, 1 mile track. yeah, they couple turns there. That one turn's kind of nasty, but other than that, and Danica, she as usual was on the bottom of the pack, and she got nailed in the rear end there when she tried to slow down.
She had no chance to win it, huh?
No, she did. She was in. No, it wasn't good. It wasn't really her fault. She was just too slow and got hit from behind. So at any rate, in an accident that was again not her fault. But I think Danica will continue to stay with NASCAR because of her royalties, and she's made such an impact that she can't go back like Montoya to IndyCar, so Formula One. So it's going to be interesting to see how she fares next year. I don't think she has the stamina, strength, whatever you want to say, but I could be all wet on that. She's still better than a lot of the guys out there. So,
what do you think it is? Is it a style of driving? Because all the cars are pretty much the same. Well, what's the difference? Just not aggressive enough, or what do you think it is?
No, I don't know if it's I think aggression does have something to do with it, but I think it's like all sports. I think you get players in there, the equipment, you get the money behind them, and you always see them win. I mean,
I agree. I think in her earlier years she had lesser equipment, but now she's with a very competitive team. I can't imagine that there's that much of a differential between the equipment that she gets to ride in and the equipment that anybody else has.
Yeah.
Well, it's really amazing the money that is behind some of these cars and the mechanics and the people behind them. But Johnson's very good. Ken's is very good. And, Gordon's been super good for years. So there's mixed emotions. I just don't think she has. They've had issues in the pits. They've had issues with some of their players, and they have had equipment failures. And so you got me. I don't know. I'm not a mechanic, but it's going to be interesting to see how. I think Johnson winning this many times is detrimental to the variety of the drivers in sport out there. But, hey, that's just me. A lot of guys are Johnson fans, and, of course, it's like being a Yankee fan. I want to see them win whenever they can,
No, you can't root against somebody because they win. You got to root against somebody because they beat you, not because you want.
Yeah.
Not because you want them to break down.
No, of course not. You don't. You don't want anybody hurt either out there, and that. But these guys do have little vendettas with each other out there, and they do some bump and go. I'd like to see it go back to the good old boys, actually, but that's not going to happen. So
the moonshine runners.
Yeah, you're going to see a purification in nearly every sport. It's just happening. You're not going to see the NFL playing like it used to years ago. Obviously, they're not playing in mud and dirt and leather heads, and you're not going to see NASCAR and the old type cars banging and hitting each other around like even Dale Earnhardt Sr. He was notorious for being a real go-getter out there on the track, and you don't want to get in his way.
Well, the big thing is now, G-Man, you've got so much money in all these sports. You don't want the players to get hurt. You don't want, all the things that you don't want minimized from what the games used to be.
Oh, absolutely. And what you're seeing now, of course, is we're going to be watching this bullying scenario going on, which I have real mixed emotions about, getting in the locker room and who knows what's going on,
We talked about that at the top of the show, and
oh, I'm sure you did.
Doug and I talked about it at lunchtime Saturday. We went out to lunch and we talked about it. I think there's still a lot more to come out. I mean, it's got to be more than they're saying right now. I can't believe in my wildest dreams just yelling back and forth at each other, regardless of what name calling was. Remember earlier this season when Cooper had all that problem with the Eagles? Well, you don't hear anything more about that. I mean, that was all forgotten when the first game was played, and he's probably their leading receiver right now. So I know he scored a couple of touchdowns yesterday. So to me, that kind of stuff doesn't. There's got to be more to this story than what we know.
Absolutely. Already things are coming out that aren't quite what initially happened between Martin and Incognito and what's going on. So it's going to be pretty wild. Obviously, it's going to be headlines for some time. But speaking of your Eagles, hey, I tell you what, I said all along, Lee folds in, and the man is doing an outstanding job.
He certainly has turned it around after he won that first game in Washington to start the season, and then they just took a unbelievable dive. But he has brought them back to the table, and right now they're in a great position. I mean, you look at the Dallas Cowboys last night. I mean, Giants got a little lucky and won a game yesterday against a poor team. Dallas lost to a sort of a mediocre team. And so right now the Eagles are right back in it.
Yeah, they are. It's going to be interesting to watch them. Say, did you know in 1972 the owner of the Rams and then the owner of the Colts, Irsay owned the Rams, and apparently the guy who owned the Colts, they switched teams of ownership?
Carol Rosenblum,
I didn't know that.
Wasn't that it?
Yeah,
Carol Rosenblum, Don?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I forgot that.
And then you remember his wife took the team to St. Louis. That's how the Rams got to St. Louis.
Dominic Franieri.
That's right.
Yeah, Franieri.
Yeah.
Yeah, they made a point of that before the game.
She was like a showgirl or a singer or something, wasn't she? She was like a show business.
I think you're right. I think you're right. Yeah. Well, the Colts come up against the Titans, so they ought to be able to win, and then they play the Cardinals, and then the Titans again. So we'll see what happens, but I just thought it was unique about Colts trying to lean less on luck and then what happmes. So
I just want to, before we run out of time, your man Don Mattingly, he's going to manage at least one more year with the Dodgers. They announced that today. There was a little uncertainty about that because he wasn't getting exactly a vote of confidence, but I don't know why. I thought he did an excellent job, but they did announce today he will be back next year, although they did fire his bench coach. I think Tim Wallach is going to take over that job.
Right, exactly. He was a third base coach. I think he's moving into the dugout. But interesting that Walter Alston went all those years with one-year contracts. So Mattingly will go a long way. If they keep winning like the Dodgers did in the 50s and 60s, Mattingly will be around for a long time.
Yeah, I hope so. He's a good guy.
Your friend Don, we didn't mention it last week, but Larry Boa. Leaving the broadcast studio, and he'll go back to with the Phillies, being I guess third base coach or bench coach.
No, he's going to be the bench coach. He's going to be with Ryan, and he's going to be the bench coach. And I haven't had a chance to talk to him. I left a message for him last week, but I haven't had a chance to talk to him and see what he has to say. I thought, to be honest with you, I never thought he'd leave the TV booth. I thought he'd stay right there with Major League Baseball and the security as opposed to the non-security of being back on. But I guess he wants to be back in uniform. He wants to be back on the field. So as soon as I get a chance to talk to him, I'll ask him about it.
Has he been back with the Phillies since he stopped playing with them? I mean, I know he's with other teams as manager and coach, but I don't think he's ever been back with the Phillies.
He was a manager. He was a manager of the Phillies.
He was the manager. Okay. I forgot
he managed San Diego. He managed the Phillies, and.
San Diego. I forgot about the Phillies. Okay, he was there. You're right. Yeah. Fiery guy, though. I mean, his temper got the best of him back then. Now he may have mellowed now, but the temper got to him, right, a little bit. Was that a downfall?
He was just a hard liner. I mean, he wants the game played the way it's supposed to be played, and unfortunately, in this era, that's not the way it is played. So, that was always
some of the modern players.
Right. That was always his problem. But, guys didn't want to play the way they were supposed to, and so they get into little altercations there. And he was a stick-to-it kind of guy. And to me, very, very qualified, very knowledgeable. And, but I don't know the players that well today, so I can't tell you how tough it is. But from what everybody said, that you talk to, it's now personality. You have to have the personality to work with the players and that kind of thing. It's not a matter of setting the rules up and you got to play the game every day the way it's supposed to be played. If you want to take a day off, I guess you got to go along with it. I don't know.
Well, before we run out of time, we want to thank you. You're a veteran. You're the veteran of the group here, so thank you on this Veterans Day for
Appreciate
your service.
Yeah. Appreciate it. Yeah. Hope everybody out there had a good day today. And, hey, listen, there's plenty of seats left at Tampa if you want to go over and see the game. You still have time to get there.
No, they just told us it's sold out.
Sold out, yeah, sure.
Yeah, it's sold out. They want to see the installing into the Ring of Honor, and they sold the game out. So we'll see. We turn it on here in about 5 minutes.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. I'm sure
well,
they did.
We're out of time. G-Man, have a good week, and kind of commiserate with your Colts, and we'll see you next week, and give us a full report on the NASCAR championship.
Okay. Take care, gentlemen.
Take care.
John, have a good week. We'll talk to you next time.
All right, my man. Bye.